Your Excellencies, President of South Africa, Prime Minister of Denmark, ministers, ambassadors, and ladies and gentlemen. Didn't we just have the most stirring video reminding us of why we've come here today? And I'm pleased to be opening the meeting as the board chair of the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn and Child Health, PMNCH, which, as many of you know, is the world's largest alliance working with and for women, children's and adolescents' health. And we're so happy to be here around the theme of renewing the promise for women, children and adolescents, a global initiative spearheaded by His Excellency, the President of South Africa. The world simply can't achieve the Sustainable Development Goals if we leave women, children and adolescents behind. They are the pillars for a better future for all of us. And so we come here today on the first day of the SDG Summit and in advance of other very important high-level meetings to leverage the power of the highest level political leadership to accelerate efforts around the SDG-related commitments for women's, children's and adolescents' health and well-being. So that is the simple statement of why we're here, and I would like now to give the floor to UNICEF's Executive Director, Catherine Russell, will deliver a message on behalf of the Secretary General. Catherine.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's so nice to see you, nice and early on a rainy day, first day of UNGA, but we're delighted to have you at UNICEF House, Excellencies, honored guests, colleagues, partners and friends, a whole array of people. On behalf of the Secretary General, it really is my pleasure to welcome you to UNICEF House today and really to enjoy this very, very important conversation. I'd like to say a special thank you to President Ramaphosa of South Africa for convening this event and for your regional and global leadership in maternal, newborn, child, and adolescent health. And I especially want to recognize South Africa's leadership in the HIV response and your commitment to scaling up access in care in the region and globally. Your work truly is saving lives. I extend a very warm welcome to Prime Minister Frederiksen, Denmark, and to the Honorable Helen Clark. We're always happy to have Helen back at UNICEF House. I think she was here last night, actually. Now she's back again, so we're thrilled. And she'll be leading the discussion today. And a huge thank you in advance to all of our other speakers and all the young advocates who are here today, who truly are driving change. As we will hear today, and as we need to repeat over and over again, the situation is urgent. Many in this room will recall that when the UN Secretary General launched the Global Strategy for Women's, Children's, and Adolescents' Health, alongside the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals in 2015, he did it because he knew that we could not and would not achieve the SDGs unless we put the health and well-being of women, children, and adolescents at the absolute center and core of that agenda. Since then, we have made progress, but the combined effect of the so-called 3 Cs, conflicts, climate change, and COVID-19 have seriously threatened our hard-won gains. And fragile, under-resourced health systems are at risk of buckling under the strain that they're facing right now. Under-supported health workers cannot meet the multiple health demands in their communities. And as always, it's the most vulnerable who suffer the most. In just the last 3 years, the number of children living in multidimensional poverty has increased by 15% to 1.2 billion globally, greatly increasing the risks to their health and well-being. Around the world, 35 million children are suffering from wasting. Every day, nearly 14,000 children under the age of 5 die from largely preventable diseases like diarrheal diseases and malaria. And still, in 2023, our progress is grossly inequitable. Where a child is born and where a woman lives is still the greatest determinant of whether they live or die, whether they survive or thrive. As we kick off a critical UNGA and the SDG Summit, we know we need to do better. We need to do more, and we need to do it now. We need to use the urgency of this moment to advance health for every woman, every adolescent, every child. That means investing in the services and systems, especially community systems that they rely on. It means expanding access to robust, resilient primary health and routine vaccination, and supporting community health workers who are mostly women. It means working together to secure sustained, adequate long-term funding for child health. And it means refusing to fall prey to what we call the fourth C, which is complacency, so often rooted in deep-seated beliefs that the lives of vulnerable women and children are somehow less worthy of our attention and investment. In fact, every dollar we invest in their health and well-being yields huge economic and societal dividends for everyone, which is really the heart of sustainable growth. Let me be clear, this is a choice. We can choose to prioritize investments in women's, children's, and adolescents' health, or we can watch our progress flatline. We can choose a better future for every child or pay the price in a less prosperous, less peaceful world. This should be a top priority for every country. I am grateful for the commitment and hard work of so many people and partners, including the Global Leaders Network, to drive the message forward. Secretary General, UNICEF, and our sister agencies who are represented here are committed to jointly supporting your efforts. We know what solidarity looks like. We know what it can achieve, and we know what we need to do. There is hard work ahead, and there are no easy fixes. But we can and we must use this momentum to put the health, well-being, and resilience of women, children, and adolescents first, and recharge a global movement to deliver on our promise to build a better world for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. And you spelled out really why we're here. The figure of 1.2 billion children in our world living in multidimensional poverty is truly shocking. And I know that it's realities like this that have moved President Ramaphosa to agree to lead the Global Leaders Network for Women's, Children's and Adolescents' Health. Your Excellency, we're really looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to share some thoughts and some views. And thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Right Honorable Helen Clark, Board Chair of the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn and Child Health, and Your Excellency, Prime Minister of Denmark. Wonderful to see you again here, and honorable leaders of various organizations that are here. I welcome you to this important gathering. I was honored to be invited by Helen Clark to play this role, and I accepted it with both arms, because if we secure the health of every child and every woman, we will fundamentally improve the health and the well-being of all of humanity. And if we go by the figures that we have just heard, it basically means that we will have a huge impact on the livelihood of many people around the world. We will lift millions of people out of poverty as well and advance the cause of human progress. We will help to also close the gap between men and women, a gap that continues to grow around the world. I'm therefore particularly heartened that we have managed to convene this session and to have a group of leaders and advocates from around the world who continue to work on these issues. Women and children and adolescents continue to face escalating challenges to their health as well as their well-being. Almost 800 women still die every day from preventable causes related to pregnancy as well as childbirth. 95% of these deaths are in low and middle income countries. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbating the existing health inequality in many, many countries. Over 10 million children have lost a parent or caregiver to COVID-19. 67 million children have missed out on routine vaccines, and 99% of children have lost learning due to school closures over this period of COVID. The long-term effects of underdeveloped children on our respective economies will be devastating, and they continue to grow. Over 1.5 million adolescent and young adults aged 10 to 25 died in 2021, mostly due to causes that are entirely preventable. These were young people who should have been growing, thriving, and developing the communities that they live in. This 98th session of the UN General Assembly is an opportunity to take stock and to sit back and think about what we can do. It is also an opportunity to agree on bold steps that need to be taken to accelerate the actions that are needed to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals that are related to women's, children's, and adolescent health and well-being. The Global Leaders Network is an opportunity for heads of state and government and other leaders to work together to champion the women, children, and adolescent agenda. I'd like to thank many leaders who I wrote to, who responded very warmly, and who have said that they will be willing to be part of this. Now, as heads of states, we can provide leadership and inspire ambitious action. We have the convening power to mobilize our peers and advance policies. We can also advance programs and financing initiatives for improved outcomes as well. The leaders of the G20 countries are particularly well placed to advance progress to the most vulnerable women, children, and adolescents as well. Having just convened in South Africa the BRICS Summit, which was joined by a number of other countries, this is another area of work that we are going to be focusing on. So we are going to be mobilizing additional countries and additional heads of state to be part of this initiative. As part of our agenda, we must challenge the disregard in many communities and countries for the sexual and reproductive health and the rights of women. We must also ensure that these issues are openly discussed and that they are openly and directly addressed as well. To advance these rights, to improve women's sexual and reproductive health, we have to end gender-based violence. The World Bank has reported that nearly a third of women around the world have experienced intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence. Now, this is a staggering number. It is now more than evident that countries must reduce inequality in access to healthcare. The inequality is catastrophic to economic, political stability, health security, and human rights. Political leadership means both action and accountability. It involves the will to make deliberate policy decisions to accelerate progress for women, children, and adolescents. It basically means that as countries, we do need to put the issues of women and children on the front of the agenda. Effective leadership champions collaboration to strengthen health and related sectors and to engage women and children meaningfully in health systems and their reform. In many countries, international donor financing for health is waning and is hugely fragmented as well. This is compounded by the diversion of domestic funding away from women's, children's, and adolescents' health in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and a number of other priorities that countries are focusing on, or donors are focusing on. The poor economic outlook and limited fiscal space in many countries heightens this challenge. Already a number of countries, particularly in the low-income countries, are reeling under the burden of debt and are calling out for the reform of the global financial system or architecture so that they can access finance to address huge social challenges that they face. So investing in interventions for women, children, and adolescent health yields social and economic benefits to continue throughout life and for generations to come. If between now and 2035, we were to invest just $5 per person per year in health systems and high impact health interventions for women and children in high burden countries, the value of the economic and social benefits would be 9 times greater than that amount. Now, every dollar invested in child immunization, for instance, brings in at least $20 in benefits. And every dollar invested in selected adolescent health interventions yields a 10-fold return in health, social, and economic benefits as well. Now, the Global Leaders Network will advocate for sustained and enhanced financial investments, contributing to the growth of nations and enabling individuals to reach their highest potential in every country. We will also advocate for improved alignment of global financing mechanisms to foster better investment in strategic priorities in countries to meet the health and well-being needs of women, children, and adolescents. Close monitoring and accountability across national, regional, and global platforms is therefore essential. Now, as governments, we can share the models being implemented in other countries and exchange best practice, because a number of other countries are doing rather better in this regard. We therefore need to share those models. As South Africa, for example, we have made important strides in areas of healthcare. New HIV infections decreased by 48% between 2010 and 2019 as the country expanded its HIV treatment and voluntary medical male circumcision. And the male circumcision one has been a phenomenal success. And we would wish that many other countries do also follow or study this type of model. We remain committed to implementing universal health care through the establishment of the National Health Insurance, which will have far-reaching benefits for the access to health services for women, children, and adolescents. And in this regard, we are hugely inspired by what Nelson Mandela did when he became president of our country and decided that pregnant women and young children should have free medical care. And that has continued to be the trajectory of our country throughout. So this has inspired us as successive governments, and now we are on the cusp of implementing universal health coverage. I'm certain that this will be the joint stewardship of the global leaders supported by the Partnership for Maternal, Newborn and Child Health and other champions, we stand a far better chance of delivering on our promise to women, children and adolescents across the world. And as you correctly said, this is a promise that we should do everything to meet, because in the end, the real better future of the world depends on what we do in the interests of women, children, and adolescents. I thank you very much for being here, and I look forward to the engagement that we will have. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, President Ramaphosa, for that wonderful speech and for your leadership and deep understanding of the issues and challenges we're facing here, the structural inequalities, the denial of sexual and reproductive health and rights, the broad range of social determinants. You covered so much, and we can really want to support you to build on that through the Global Leaders Network. It's now my great pleasure to welcome Her Excellency Mette Frederiksen, the Prime Minister of Denmark, to the podium. And we're going to pose a question to the Prime Minister of Denmark to really share your vision for prioritising the health and well-being of women, children and adolescents in your own country and globally, and how can we step up progress? Over to you, Prime Minister.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, Excellencies, and ladies and gentlemen. Actually, this is quite an easy job because I totally agree on what has already been said on this stage this morning. But let me take this opportunity just to underline some perspectives on this extremely important discussion and target. Allow me by starting with some few facts, even though it's early in the morning. In 2020, only 3 years ago, more than 250,000 women lost their lives due to pregnancy and childbirth. Teenage pregnancy is today the main cause of death among teenage girls in developing countries. 1/3 of all girls in developing countries are married before they are 18 years old. 1/3. And nearly 1/4 of all women across the world are not able to say no to sex against their will. So this is a worldwide problem, and millions of women and girls lack access to contraception and fundamental rights. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the grim reality we face in 2023. I think we can all agree this is wrong. It is unfair, and it is completely unacceptable. Women's and children's health and rights are fundamental parts of the SDGs. So to answer your question, we need to do more and we need to do it faster. Right now, we also have to say this, and I totally agree with you, President, that we need to be very clear on this. Women's and girls' rights are under pressure in many places around the world. In war situations, like it has always been the case. And this is a very effective way to put human rights under pressure. We need to step up for these women and girls who cannot always make the voices heard themselves. Of course, it is extremely difficult to stand up if your fundamental rights are under pressure. So they need access to primary health care and sexual and reproductive health and rights. And this is a common responsibility because we all know the very proud South African traditions of ensuring human rights after the end of the old regime. But in many other places in the world, we don't see leaders who are standing up for these fundamental rights. So it has to be a common responsibility. This is about access to maternal health care. I'm sorry to say, friends, this is a question about safe abortion. And of course, this is also a question about education, because everyone needs to know what's going on, and we need these discussions to be out in the open. In my mind, it should be like this. Every human being, no matter who you are or where you live, should always have the right to decide freely on matters related to your body and your health. So therefore, dear President, thank you for your commitment. I think we need some strong male colleagues in this discussion. And we need to be very frank to each other, because these problems has always been in our world. And the only way through is to gather and to have this shared commitment. 3 months ago, I had the pleasure of visiting your beautiful country. I appreciated our very honest and open discussion on the many challenges that the world is facing today. And therefore, I also appreciate how you have taken the lead on this subject of women and children's health. And I really believe that by joining forces, we can move things and we can show a way forward. But we have to do it very, very fast, because those who are teenagers today will be grown-ups in very few years. So it is right now that we have to ensure their rights. We cannot wait. We need to get the whole world aboard on this discussion. I think we share this responsibility. And this is one of the only ways if we want to ensure that we will actually reach the SDGs. And we are not on track on that, unfortunately. As you probably know, we have been working in Denmark on gender equality for many, many years. And we have succeeded. But it takes a lot of discussions, and it demands a lot of political will and decisions. So words is not enough. And that should maybe be my final point of view. Talking about this from the northern part is not enough. We have to put money on the table. And therefore, it is important that we directly put money on the table when it comes to reproductive health and rights, even though there are people against this and countries against this. And it is also important that we directly support the UNICEF, because we need a strong voice, a voice that only talks on behalf of the children and not many other different aspects, so that women and children all over the world can have the right and the possibility that all of them deserve. So thank you so much for this meeting today.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister. Another wonderful leadership statement on just so many important issues in this agenda. And you're right, women's and girls' rights are under pressure. That has to be called out. But as you say, we need to go beyond words. This is about investment as well, as President Ramaphosa also stressed. And we're very much looking forward to hearing of commitments that can be mobilized for more investment in these critical areas. So moving right along, we're going to hear some remarks from partners. And the first I will call to the stage is Professor Senait Fisseha, who is Vice President of Global Programs at the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation. And she is going to come forward and tell us from her experience what the key actions are which need to be taken to ensure that our health systems and universal health coverage actually do address sexual and reproductive health and rights. Senait, for you. Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
Good morning. It's an incredibly tough act to follow, but Excellency President Ramaphosa, the President of the Republic of South Africa, Her Excellency Mette Frederiksen, Prime Minister of Denmark, and Honorable Helen Clark, as well as a shout out to UNICEF and PMNCH. I don't see Helga and Flavia, who I think, got it right in a sense that they said, you know, we tend to be very vertical. We're going to work on HIV. We're going to work on abortion access. We're going to work on this. And they just said, no, if we're going to make progress, we're going to look at women, children, and adolescents. And I want to give them a shout out for that. Excellency, President Ramaphosa, this is not the first time we've seen you rise up to fight for women and girls. I personally, and I know many, many African women are incredibly grateful for the leadership you provided when you were the AU chairperson in the passage of the AU Convention on Ending Violence Against Women and Girls. But much like President Ramaphosa, everyone at the table has done incredible work in their own countries and in their own rights. So much has been said, and I'm trying to sift through my head, saying, you know, you almost wish you see the speeches ahead because you don't want to hear the same thing over and over again. But the fact that we're sitting here after all the declarations we make, from Beijing to ICPD, right, to Maputo Plan of Action, from MDGs to SDGs, and yet we're sitting here kind of requires a different framing. Why is this happening? So yes, we've made progress, and we want to commend and celebrate, you know, each other and all of you who've committed to be here to advance the agenda. But I think we have to stop and ask what is going on. And I think, as Her Excellency pointed out, there is a very strong pushback against reproductive health and gender equity issues. I probably think it's at its highest globally. You know, we saw the reversal of Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court of the United States. We see a very high rate of femicide, even in developed countries like Italy. I had dinner last night with Tedros and Bruce, and we were trying to pull our hairs out, saying, I mean, what is going on with this? The frightening upsurge of sexual assault in Asia and India that we see every day, the anti-gender movements in different parts of the world that are currently ripping through sub-Saharan Africa, that are mostly imported. So that shows us this is not a global North versus a global South divide. This is a human rights issue. This is a fundamental issue that affects all of us. I mean, you heard the statistics. 1 in 4 women have experienced sexual violence against their will globally. So I think the establishment of this global leaders network comes at a very critical time globally. We are halfway through the SDGs and know that we are far behind our goals. If we look just at maternal mortality, which I honestly am shocked no one is alarming, you know, the sound. WHO published a report in February 2023. In fact, we're now seeing a trend in a rise in maternal mortality in Caribbean, in South America, and in the United States, especially around communities of Black and brown women. We are seeing astounding numbers. If you look at African countries, it's truly a crisis. 28 out of 30 worst places to give birth are African countries, and 70% of maternal deaths are concentrated there. So in 2020, if you look at Nigeria, 82,000 women died in Nigeria in pregnancy-related complications. So that's 1/3 of global maternal mortality. So imagine a 15-year-old, if I were to take myself back to my 15-year-old in sub-Saharan Africa, still, like it was when I was growing up, has a 1 in 40 chance of dying from preventable pregnancy-related crisis, compared to New Zealand, when there is 1 in 400 for a 15-year-old who is from Australia and New Zealand. So you can see inequity is deeply embedded in this. So while we've made significant progress, you know, on children's health, again, you saw the targets. We are seeing backsliding on childhood immunization for the first time in 3 decades, and discrepancies in child survival among countries remains as big as maternal mortality. So for me, Excellencies, all of this points to the need for an urgent and concentrated action to protect women and children today more than ever, But it also shows us that progress towards equity and justice is not linear. It can easily go back decades if we are not vigilant and bold enough to demand a reality that may seem too ambitious at the moment. For about, I think, a year, I took a gap from global convenings. I'm going to be very honest, right? For those of you who don't know me, that's my trademark. It's so mind-boggling how we get together in rooms and make commitments, and then 10 years later, 5 years later, we get together and there's no progress. So what do we need? What do we need to do differently? You know, Einstein has said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. So we have to do something different, and we at the foundation are trying. I think one of the things we all need to challenge, you know, the United Nations with all its ideals, incredible NGOs, we just have to say, what else are they doing and are they not doing? And so one of the things I have seen since moving to Africa in the last 3 years is that there's a lot of inefficiency and wastage in this global operations. Resources are not getting to the people who need it at hand. So we said, we're gonna flip the paradigm, and I see some of my colleagues in the room, and we said, we're gonna go to countries and ask them, what is it that they need to achieve these objectives in reducing maternal mortality? I see my colleague and friend, the health minister of Sierra Leone sitting there. Sierra Leone has made significant reduction in maternal mortality in the last 5 years. I think we are one of the very few partners in Sierra Leone who has said, we're gonna put X million in your hands and bring you the technical assistance to have impact. So I think we need to radically reimagine and frankly dismantle the system that is deeply rooted in colonialism, where we still think we're gonna fly in and fix people's problem. We still undermine the lived experience of people who actually know how to solve these problems, but they have deficiency in resources. But what has become in this global architecture is that our resources have given us the muscle to flex. We meet in New York, Geneva, London, you know, great places. We make commitments. And then in fact, we meet very frequently to monitor them and get together and say, oh, we're not making progress, right? So I think this is time to radically reimagine global engagement, empower people on the ground who are doing the work. And we have seen incredible progress when we support health ministers. We ask government for a multi-sectoral approach. So one of the things we're going to do in the coming year is we're going to take the 30 countries in Africa that have the highest maternal mortality. We're going to sit with every head of state, and I'm going to invite President Ramaphosa to come with me, right? Because I need an advocate. We're going to sit with them because I frankly don't think these heads of state understand. I think there is no religion or policy that says to you it's acceptable for a woman to die while giving birth. It is absolutely outrageous. So I don't think it is, we were asking ourselves last night, what is it? Frankly, Bruce, you were there. We took the WHO data and we made a graph. And Tedros looked at it and he said, oh, wow. And I said, Tedros, this is your data. It came from the WHO. We just put it in a very palatable way, where if I bring it to you, President Ramaphosa, you would look at it and say, how can I accept this, right? Once we do that, how do we build a mechanism to enable countries to deliver? I don't think there is a lack of skill in sub-Saharan Africa, especially where I reside. I don't think there is lack of will. Frankly, even this whole conversation, there is a pushback. I'm now in about 13 countries that have been deemed or unfriendly to women. Trust me, when you are there being supportive and giving them resources, they are more committed than each and every one of us in this room to deliver for their own people. So my call to action is a radical reimagination of global health as we know it. Use grassroots movements. Again, I'm gonna reach out to PMNCH because I feel like they have gotten it right. How do we equip citizens to hold their governments accountable? And then how do we collectively hold the international mechanisms accountable to deliver for women and girls differently? But thank you, Your Excellency, for convening us, and PMNCH for bringing us together. I'm super grateful.
Well, Senait's laid down the challenge. Don't do business as usual because it's not working. And we are all shocked, of course, by the WHO report on what's been happening with maternal mortality under all the challenges of the poly crisis that we are living through. So thank you for those reminders. Now, I'm conscious, of course, that traffic means we always run a little bit late in New York. So I know Prime Minister Frederiksen has something to go to. And if people want to slip away, that's entirely fine. We do have a couple more speakers we really want to hear from, but if people have to go, we acknowledge they have to go. My next call will be to Hiris Jamal, who is the UNICEF youth advocate. And Hiris, you're going to come forward and just say a little bit to us about how children and adolescents can be more engaged for their own health and well-being, and how we can make a big difference for the 1.8 billion adolescents and youth in the world today. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to start saying, Your Excellence, adults, and everyone in this room, we have to protect the promise. This is our wake-up call. It's my pleasure and great honor to be here and have the opportunity to use this powerful instrument that most of us can play. That is human voice, my voice, a minha voz. Hiris Jamal is my name. I am UNICEF Mozambique Youth Advocate. I was born in the same day as Albert Einstein, and my mother language is Portuguese. We have a big challenge because only in my country, in my community, it's difficult to see a girl like me finish primary school. From my own experience, I lost my father early, my mother is a cleaner, and I only finished my law degree with the offer of my old brothers. I was born in community in Nampula province, where girls are forced into early marriage, are forced to leave schools, and we have the 6th highest prevalence of early marriage and teen pregnancy. I'm privileged, I know, to be an exception. I can tell you it was a difficult journey, but here I am to tell and inspire all girls around the world and saying it's possible. My experience with my peers and participation in many different movements to empower women and girls made me who I am today. Here with presidents, leaders, young people like me, reporters, and others. But for me, we truly, sisters and brothers, mothers and fathers, we represent a family of 8 billion people here. Today, I use my voice on behalf of all girls around the world to say that this is our time. We want to study. We want a quality health service. Be here. We need to fight for our future. Adults, it's your time to change your ways. We all aware that we are moving backwards toward the promise, and we need to work together to make progress. The health and rights of women and children are in danger like never before, and this is our voice. We ask for better access of information because information is power to empower. We call you to listen our voice and include us in everything. For every woman, children, and adolescent, inclusion and decision-making process, access of quality education and health service, hope and future. For every woman, children, and adolescent, vaccination and good rights. Young people want a better world, and this is our message. We need to improve women empowerment and create more leadership opportunity for us. We all want family with one planet, and one future. We need more work together. God bless our world with love and peace. Thank you.
Sometimes people ask me, what gives you hope in these grim times? And I say, young people. And didn't we just hear that from Iris? Thank you for your inspirational words today. Now I've got three more very brief interventions. I'm calling up my old friend and colleague, Winnie Byanyima. Winnie, come and give it to us.
Thank you, Helen, and Your Excellency, President Ramaphosa, and distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen. I was asked the question, how do you get it right? You said political leadership, partnerships, and supporting countries to get it right. It's so hard to follow Senait because she said it all. We start with the political leadership. When we assume that countries, governments do not have it and start from there, we're wrong. We have to start from, they are the leaders, they have the political will. Partnerships, I want to share two examples of how we brought partners together behind the political leadership of governments. One is on children living with HIV. Children are left behind. You know, we have in the whole world today, 77% of people living with HIV are on treatment, 77. Yes, there's another 23% we must get on treatment. But you know what it is for children? It's only 57% of children are on treatment, living with HIV. Listen to that. The gap between adults and children and their access to antiretroviral treatment is that wide. 130,000 children were infected last year with HIV. Even though we have what we need to stop mother-to-child transmission. So this is what we know, that no leader, however much you want to judge them, wants to see their children die or get infected when it could be avoided. So we've pulled together an alliance of 12 countries that have the highest number of children living with HIV. And together, with them, with the leaders at the highest level, they are ministers of health, we formed this alliance that's bringing together the governments that have resources, financing partners, with women and girls themselves in those countries. We need a movement of women and girls. They are the affected, they feel it, they lead, with faith institutions that work on the issue. Some of them don't believe in abortion, some of them don't believe in this. We don't care, but they save lives. They have services. We bring them in. And many other parts. The Vatican is a part of this alliance through their work on children. I don't agree with them on abortion, but we work with them because they work on children's rights. So with all those partners, we've brought them together, and each country we provide the support at the technical level, together with UNICEF, us at UNAIDS, WHO. We all work at the ground level in those 12 countries, providing support to get it right, to close the gaps. And the last thing, accountability amongst the political leaders. We've taken it to the African Union. We've said it's at the African Union that the leaders hold themselves accountable. So these 12 countries will be giving a report at the African Union on their progress. South Africa is leading again. It has one of the highest numbers of children living with HIV, but also the highest commitment. So we have the 12, they'll go to the African Union, they will every year report on their progress, and we will support from the bottom on the ground. That is one story. I won't give another one because of time. But to us, the political leadership comes first. The support at the country level by us who are technical is very important. And the mobilization of partners and the leadership of women and girls themselves. Thank you very much, Helen.
Thank you, Winnie. Thank you, Winnie. Now, before I ask the Executive Director of UNFPA to sum up, I know we have a very senior representative of Bangladesh, whose leader will join the Global Leaders Network with us, Saima Wazed. Saima, did you want to make just 2 minutes of comments quickly? Yeah, please.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here today and listening to everything that is being said and the commitment and the passion. As a woman from a South Asian country, particularly, it is very heartening to see that we're truly going to make a change. We've been very fortunate in Bangladesh. Of course, everybody knows the statistics, so I'm not going to repeat it, but we've been very fortunate with the right leadership that has prioritized the health of women and girls, and we hope to continue to work together with our partners so that we can show perhaps how we've solved our problems, how we've prioritized it politically and put in the money and the resources that has made a difference. So, you know, I'd like to express on behalf of my mother a continued commitment to this issue, and we hope to work together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Saima, on behalf of your mother, Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister, and we're thrilled to have her on board. Thank you so much. Now, Natalia, Kanem, please come up. You will be so thrilled to have heard the great shout-outs for sexual and reproductive health and rights and bodily autonomy. The floor is yours, my dear.
Thank you so much. Your Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, and I acknowledge the Prime Minister of Denmark who was with us, Right Honorable Helen Clark, members of the Diplomatic Corps, dear Kathy and colleagues, dear young people and partners, renewing the promise. Significant progress is made when the world galvanizes to save the lives of women and children. At the beginning of this millennium, governments committed to the Millennium Development Goals, which called for a 75% reduction in the maternal mortality rate by the year 2015. And what was the result? Certainly, Excellency. No, absolutely. And thank you so much for your leadership. Very honored. Yes, so what was the result of the Millennium Development Goals era? The maternal mortality ratio did fall by 33% globally, and by more than half in the 58 countries that at the time had the highest rates of maternal mortality. So then in 2015, in the era of the Sustainable Development Goals, where we are now, the world again committed to reducing maternal death ratios, this time to below 70 deaths per 100,000 live births by the year 2030. Look around, we've already heard we are nowhere near the target, and stagnation has occurred, and very worrisomely, in some places, in some regions, maternal deaths are actually increasing. So why is it that pregnancy and childbirth-related complications are currently the leading cause of death among adolescent girls in the Global South? Half of those pregnancies were unintended to begin with, and of those, and it numbers about 6 million of those, they end in unsafe abortion. Inequalities in healthcare and reproductive injustice are now a daily reality for so many women and girls. And African and Afro-descendiente women and girls are demanding change. Why should they suffer these significant disparities in sexual and reproductive health and rights and have outcomes up to and including dying during childbirth disproportionately compared to non-Afro-descendant populations? Just to summarize, I'll say that these numbers are not statistics. What they are stark reminders of the lives that we stand to lose unless we step up and act decisively. And we've heard that it's conflict, it's COVID, climate change that's affecting the fallout that these women and girls are experiencing. Tackling maternal deaths is not a mystery. It never has been. Get closer to the problem. Increase access to family planning. Let's not have any more debates about comprehensive sexuality education. And our youth leader has pointed the way. Information is power for young people. And invest in midwives. The world has committed to doubling the number of midwives, adding nearly 1 million so that every woman has access to the high quality, caring care that she deserves. And yes, indeed, Helen, leadership matters. Conviction matters. Data analysis matters. Let us appreciate leaders like the President of South Africa, the Prime Minister of Denmark, and now, as we've heard, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, who are willing to stand up in establishing the type of networks that make a difference. And such a renewal of the promise has to come with monitoring, with data, and with results to show our progress. The civil society leaders and the youth leaders, many of you here today, the parliamentarians represented here today, must speak with one voice and push back against the pushback. So I'm really pleased to see these shining examples of high-level leadership to advance a critical agenda. And this high-level week, right, of the United Nations General Assembly provides an unprecedented opportunity in the lead up to the Global Forum for Adolescents in October, ICPD 30 next year, to ensure that the health and well-being of women and children and adolescents and that universal health coverage remains high on the agenda. So let us work together to support the efforts of women, of young people, and to assure that we walk in unison as we renew our promise. Today, I renew my promise, and I hope you will too, because this is how things change when we stand with women and with children to safeguard their health and well-being. There are no limits to what we can achieve together. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Natalia. Thank you, everyone who's come and been able to stay. Probably a 15-minute running behind isn't so bad in a week where the traffic is impossible in New York. But with President Ramaphosa's leadership, we really hope to make something big of this network and going beyond words to action on the disturbing trends that we see and not making the progress we need to make to realize the promise of the Sustainable Development Goals. So a rallying cry from all our speakers. We're very grateful to all of them and their aides and officials who've made it possible. And thank you so much once again for coming. Thank you.